The crisp April morning carried a chill across John Parker's 200-acre Texas ranch in Redstone as he walked the northern fence line, his loyal German shepherd, Titan, padding faithfully at his side. The sun casting a golden glow over the plains, the lake shimmering faintly in the distance, its calm a stark contrast to the tension knotting his gut. John's boots crunched on the damp earth. His sharp eyes, honed by years in Delta Force under the call sign Ghost, catching something out of place, fresh tire tracks, deep and wide, from heavy vehicles not owned by any locals. The wildflowers along the fence trembling in the breeze, their vibrant colors a quiet promise of peace he'd fought to maintain. The faint lowing of cattle and the rustle of leaves carrying a warning on the wind, a sign of trouble that echoed across the plains. After outsmarting Melissa Carter with a steel scarecrow, John had hoped for a season to mend the ranch's wounds and Ethan's resolve, but now the air thrummed with danger, a new threat rising from the shadows of his past. And he'd face it with the steel of his 54 years, the burn scar on his forearm throbbing with a dull ache, the plains stretching wide and unbroken, the wildflowers enduring despite the storms that had come before. To the folks of Redstone, John was just a quiet rancher who kept himself, few noticing his military bearing or the piercing gaze that scanned every detail around him, none knowing the hard-working rancher had once been a legendary Delta Force commander, a shadow who came silently and vanished without a trace, the lake glowing gold as the sun climbed higher, its surface a mirror of the peace he sought to protect. His neighbor, Clara Hensley, confirmed his worst fears over coffee at the saloon, a Mexican cartel tied to Grayson's network having recently arrived in the area, systematically buying up ranches, intimidating those who refused to sell until they caved, 7 properties falling into their hands in the past month alone. For John, this wasn't just news, it was a tactical assessment. His ranch strategically positioned, controlling the main road and several access routes into Redstone, making it clear the cartel would target him sooner or later. The wildflowers along the saloon's edge trembling in the breeze, the plains pulsing with the weight of history, their roots deep in the Texas soil. Returning home, John opened the hidden bunker he'd built when he bought the property, his old team calling it paranoia, John calling it preparation. Beneath a layer of ordinary tools lay military-grade comms gear, weapons, and tactical equipment. Everything he might need if things went south, hoping he'd never need it, but years of service teaching him to always expect the worst. The lake shimmering faintly beyond the ridge, its surface a mirror of the hope that endured. All day, John watched black SUVs belonging to the cartel cruise slowly past his gates, scoping the area, clearly choosing their next target, prompting him to call his old Delta Force team. Men who'd fought beside him in uncharted corners of the world, executing missions the world would never know. Hunter Raven, their sniper, the first to report in, followed by Dustin Demo, their explosives expert, Eric Spector, their comm specialist, and Marcus Dock, their medic. Together, always a force to be reckoned with, even by the deadliest enemies, though all now past 50. The cartel having no idea the kind of retirees they'd be facing. The wildflowers along the ranch's edge trembling in the evening light, the plains stretching wide and unbroken, their roots deep in the Texas soil. John's plans shifted abruptly the next day when he learned his friend Frank Hensley had been attacked. Frank, the only one in Redstone who'd welcomed John with open arms, helping him mend his barn and teaching him local ranching ways, now lying in a coma after a brutal beating by cartel enforcers, all because he refused to sell land his family had owned for generations. At the hospital, John meeting Frank's wife, Mary, and their 14-year-old son, Ethan, not his own Ethan, but a boy with the same name, despite the trauma. Young Ethan showing incredible observational strength, describing the attackers in detail. A scar on one man's face, a crown tattoo on another's neck, prayer beads in a third's hand. John recognizing Ethan's rare talent for noticing what most missed in high-stress situations. The lake glowing silver in the distance, its calm a distant promise amidst the storm to come. Understanding the danger to Frank's family, John insisted Mary and young Ethan stay with him temporarily while Frank recovered, knowing his ranch the only place they'd be safe if the cartel came after them again. Now personal, not just about protecting his land, but defending the innocent, preserving Redstone's way of life. Gathering his team at an abandoned mill, briefing them on the situation's gravity, all realizing they had far less time to prepare than they'd thought. The cartel moving faster and harder than expected, the wildflowers along the mill's edge trembling in the breeze, the plains pulsing with the weight of survival, their roots deep in the Texas soil. On the way home with Frank's family, John spotted the familiar black SUVs heading toward the old Carter Ranch, recently seized by the cartel. Placing Mary and young Ethan in the guest house at the farthest, safest part of his property, Titan immediately taking the boy under his protection, staying by his side as if sensing his role's importance. That evening, on the porch, young Ethan asking John point-blank if he was really just a rancher, John not lying to the boy, telling him he'd been someone else once, now just wanted to live in peace like anyone else in Redstone. When Ethan asked if he could stop the men who hurt his dad, John promising to do everything in his power to bring justice. The lake glowing gold outside as the last rays of dusk faded, the wildflowers enduring despite the storm, their roots deep in the Texas soil. The next morning, as John predicted, 3 black SUVs rolled up to his ranch, 5 men in expensive suits stepping out. Their leader, Raul El Corte Mendez, lips twisting in a businesslike smile that barely hid a predator's gaze, John counting 2 more men in the vehicles, hands near their weapons, ready to draw at any moment. Mendez introducing himself as a representative of an investment group, wanting to buy John's land, not even pretending to negotiate, offering $3 million in cash, far above the ranch's market value. John refusing politely but firmly, explaining the land wasn't for sale, Mendez's smile sharpening, resorting to veiled threats. Noting the area was changing, those refusing change often meeting accidents, especially stubborn old men who didn't recognize a good deal. John noticing 2 cartel men scanning his property, marking lines of sight and potential defensive positions. Not real estate agents, but an advanced team gathering intel for an attack. The wildflowers along the driveway, trembling in the breeze. The plains stretching wide and unbroken, their roots deep in the Texas soil. During the exchange, John deliberately called Mendez by name, though he hadn't introduced himself. A calculated move to let him know John knew more than he let on, seeing a brief flicker of uncertainty on Mendez's face, confirming the message had landed as the meeting ended. Mendez casually mentioning how unfortunate it'd be if something happened to Titan, John's reply carrying the weight of years of experience. That'd be a very grave mistake. Something in his tone making Mendez hesitate for a split second, expecting an ordinary old rancher they could intimidate or buy, instead encountering something entirely different, something that unnerved them. The lake shimmering faintly beyond the ridge, its surface a mirror of the hope that endured. After the unwanted visitors left, John activated his real security system, hidden cameras in the trees monitoring every entrance to the ranch, motion sensors logging every movement along the perimeter, all feeding into the command center he'd set up in his basement, a habit from his past, preparing for the worst. Knowing they didn't have much time, the cartel not waiting the full 24 hours they'd promised, something in John's demeanor making them wary, meaning they'd return sooner with greater force. But John and his team were ready, not just about a piece of land, but protecting the innocent, including Frank's family, now under his care. The wildflowers along the ranch's edge trembling in the night breeze, the plains pulsing with the weight of history, their roots deep in the Texas soil. Night fell quiet and star-filled. John positioning his team at pre-planned defensive points, Raven taking a sniper post in the northern water tower, with a perfect view of the main entrance. Demo rigging key access points with explosives, setting traps for uninvited guests, Spectre calibrating his gear to intercept enemy comms, Doc setting up a field clinic in the basement. Ready for anything, the first alarm sounding shortly after midnight, the surveillance system spotting a convoy of 20 vehicles heading toward the ranch. The cartel clearly mobilizing every available force, no longer pretending to be businessmen. This a full-scale operation, through night vision goggles, John watching the convoy approach. 40 armed men moving in disciplined formations, someone having trained them well, but they forgot the first rule of battle. Never fight on ground the enemy has prepared. The wildflowers along the pasture's edge trembling in the moonlight, the plains stretching wide and unbroken, their roots deep in the Texas soil. The cartel forces split into 3 groups. The main force advancing along the central road, 2 flanking teams moving to the sides, try to encircle the ranch, John ordering his team to hold fire until the enemy was in their trap, needing them to feel safe before realizing they weren't. As the first vehicles reached the perimeter, cartel members spilling out, weapons drawn, moving in tight, trained formations. Mendez stepping from an armored SUV, directing his men with precise gestures, surround the ranch. No one leaves alive, ordering in Spanish, the lake glowing silver in the distance. It's come a beacon of the peace John fought for. When the enemy hit the designated point, John gave the signal, demo detonating the first set of explosives. The ground erupting beneath the lead vehicles in a violent blast, sending them flying in a whirlwind of dirt and shrapnel. The dust not even settling as Raven opened fire from his hidden perch. 2 cartel soldiers dropping before they realized they were under attack. What the hell? Mendez shouting, diving for cover. Where's the shooter? The night silence turning to chaos. John's team having meticulously prepared their defensive positions. Locals now joining the fight. Every time the cartel forces tried to regroup, caught in deadly crossfire. John moving like a ghost in the dark. Years of combat experience guiding every step. Ambushing 2 cartel members, disarming one, using him as a shield against the other's gunfire. Both falling silently to the ground. The wildflowers along the battlefield trembling in the breeze. The plains pulsing with the weight of survival, their roots deep in the Texas soil. Who the hell are these people? A cartel member screaming over their radio. Something's wrong here. They're too organized. Mendez's voice cutting through the chaos. These are professionals. Fall back to the vehicles. Take defensive positions. But too late. John triggering another series of explosives, cutting off their escape route, trapping them in a kill zone. Raven's rifle speaking again, systematically eliminating remaining threats. The cartel's first wave collapsing. What started as a confident assault becoming a desperate fight for survival. Of the original 20 vehicles, 8 burning. Of the 40 men Mendez brought, fewer than half still alive. Full retreat. Mendez ordering immediate fallback to the rally point. John replying calmly, I don't think so. Raven's rifle firing 3 more shots, shredding the tires of the remaining vehicles, sealing the cartel's fate. Los Fantasmas will kill us all. Mendez muttering, realizing the trap they'd walked into, the lake glowing silver in the distance. It's come a testament to the peace John fought for. John emerged from the shadows behind Mendez. Los Fantasmas should have done their homework, saying, should have at least known who owns this ranch. Mendez spinning, raising his weapon, but not fast enough. John strike precise and efficient. The cartel leader collapsing unconscious as the remaining gunmen surrendered. Raven reporting, perimeter secure. No runners. Doc already treating the wounded cartel members. Stabilizing their injuries. Spectre intercepting new intel. Cartel reinforcements still en route, 20 minutes out, this time with heavier firepower. John's team quickly regrouping, checking weapons. Reloading ammo. The night far from over, this just the beginning, the real battle still ahead. Just like the old days, Doc commenting, tending to a wounded cartel soldier. Better, John replying, loading fresh rounds into his rifle. This time we're fighting on our terms, on our land, and this time we'll end it for good. the wildflowers along the battlefield trembling in the moonlight. The plains stretching wide and unbroken, their roots deep in the Texas soil. The second wave hit like a storm, automatic gunfire lighting up the night. Heavy caliber rifles tearing through John's outer defenses. Cartel forces moving with professional precision, using suppressive fire to cover their advance. Not an uncoordinated assault like the first wave, but a large-scale military operation. Multiple teams at 9 o'clock, Raven reporting, taking precise shots. They're using solid fire and maneuver tactics. These aren't your average cartel grunts. John watching through thermal optics as the cartel's elite force, Los Fantasmas, took strategic positions. Former Mexican Special Forces confirming, look at how they move. They've done this before. A rocket piercing the darkness, striking John's barn, the reinforced structure holding. Designed for such a scenario, but the message clear. The cartel no longer playing, using incendiary weapons, trying to flush John's team from their prepared positions. The night ablaze with gunfire and explosions, turning the battlefield into a fiery hell. The lake glowing silver in the distance, its calm a beacon of the peace John fought for. They're getting more desperate. Raven noting, shifting position as flames swept his previous sniper nest. They're making more mistakes. John warning, stay sharp. Desperate men are unpredictable. Los Fantasmas breaching the inner perimeter, moving toward the command center with deadly efficiency. John trying to intercept, but the gunman pinning him with coordinated suppressive fire. I need backup, shouting, his voice calm despite the bullets flying around him. Demo replying, we're on it. The ground erupting beneath the death squad. Not with explosives, but compressed air and dirt, the non-lethal blast disorienting the cartel fighters. Breaking their formation, John closing the gap in an instant, the fight brutal and swift. The cartel soldiers excellent marksmen, but John having spent decades mastering close-quarters combat. The first man falling after a hard strike to his throat. The second landing a solid hit before John's elbow struck the nerve cluster behind his ear. The third tougher. Clearly a hand-to-hand specialist. Impressive, the man saying with an accent. Taking a fighting stance. But you're still just a pitiful old man. John's response, a rapid combination of strikes, ending with the cartel specialist unconscious on the ground. Age and cunning, kid. Saying simply, the wildflowers along the battlefield trembling in the breeze. The plains pulsing with the weight of survival, their roots deep in the Texas soil. A new threat loomed on the horizon. The cartel bringing heavy artillery. An armored truck with a 20mm autocannon, powerful enough to punch through John's reinforced walls. No longer an attempt to seize the ranch, but total destruction. Raven, can you take the shot? John asking, they've shielded it too well. Replying, John making a snap decision, the autocannon devastating, but like all weapons, having weaknesses. Demo. Remember Somalia? The arms depot with the tanks. Yeah, that was, I like where you're going. I can do that. Give me 2 minutes. The Phantasma's voice coming over the radio, sharp and commanding. This is what happens to those who defy the cartel. We'll turn this place to ash. The autocannon pounding relentlessly, but John having seen worse in his life. Spectre. Patch me into their frequency. It's time to teach our friend a lesson. Done. John's voice cold and professional. Impressive weapon. Russian-made. Probably stolen from a military depot. But it's not nearly as effective against what I prepared for you. You're damned. The Phantasma roaring. Your defenses are crumbling. Look to your left. The cartel leader doing so. Just in time to be blindsided by Demo. The burning barn, assumed to be collateral damage, suddenly revealing its true purpose. The entire structure transformed into a massive directed explosion, focusing its force directly at the autocannon truck. Not meant to destroy. Too dangerous. But the shockwave flipping the vehicle on its side, neutralizing the cannon, sending the Phantasma's men scrambling. John declaring, we've only been polite so far. If we get serious, you won't be around to see it. The lake glowing silver in the distance. Its calm a testament to the peace John fought for. The Phantasma ordering his men to kill every rancher, but a clear hint of fear in his voice now. his forces dying or surrendering one by one, his best fighters neutralized, heavy weapons systematically dismantled. John giving the order for the final phase, for the Phantasma and his men, the night becoming a true nightmare. At one point, the cartel gunmen, thinking they had the upper hand, forcing John's team to retreat, in reality, walking straight into the final trap John had prepared from the start. Watching the remaining Phantasma forces rally around their command vehicle, exactly where he wanted them, the cartel leader thinking he was making a smart move by regrouping his surviving men. In truth, gathering them all in a perfect kill zone, initiate Protocol Phoenix, John ordering, his team confirming without hesitation, having drilled this scenario countless times during active service. Get ready for some fireworks, demo announcing. Those charges we haven't used yet, they're locked and loaded. Raven's voice cold and precise. Clear sight. All your high-value targets are my crosshairs. John reminding, we need survivors. They have to send a message back to the cartel. The counterattack executed with surgical precision. Demos explosives detonating one after another. Not to kill, but to cut off any escape route. Walls of fire and smoke forcing the cartel forces exactly where John wanted them. What the hell are they doing? The Phantasma demanding, watching his carefully positioned men suddenly herded into a death trap under relentless crossfire. Giving you a real lesson in warfare. Watch yourself. This is how professionals do it. John replying over the cartel's radio, the wildflowers along the battlefield trembling in the moonlight. The plains stretching wide and unbroken, their roots deep in the Texas soil. Raven's rifle firing first, disabling the cartel's comm systems with 3 well-placed shots. Then vehicle after vehicle rendered useless, each engine destroyed with ruthless efficiency. The cartel forces now deaf, blind, and stranded. You think this changes anything? The Phantasma roaring, but panic in his voice. I still have men. I still have firepower. Not anymore. John replying as Spectre's gear jammed the cartel's radio signals with ear-splitting interference. Right now, the state police are rounding up your reinforcements on their way here. Funny how things change when someone tips off the feds about a major cartel operation. At dawn, the battle ending. The cartel forces completely dismantled, surviving members sitting zip-tied under Doc's watchful eye, state police and the FBI arriving to arrest the criminals. Gathering evidence of their illegal activities, John watching the rising sun cast its light on his battered but intact ranch, the cartel having brought their best, former special forces, professional killers, military-grade gear, outnumbering them with superior firepower, but learning the hard way that some battles weren't won with brute force, but skill. A handful of old men not just defending the ranch, but thwarting the cartel's grand plans to turn Redstone into a major hub for drug smuggling from Mexico. The lake glowing gold outside as the first rays of dawn broke, the wildflowers enduring despite the storm, their roots deep in the Texas soil. Know what? Demo musing. Watching the last FBI vehicle disappear down the dirt road. Those abandoned cartel properties might be worth bidding on at auction. They're in good tactical spots. John smiling. The soldier in him appreciating the strategy. Controlling key terrain, securing a defensive perimeter around Redstone. The rancher in him liking the idea of good land in the right hands. One thing's for sure, Raven adding, scanning the horizon with his sniper's trained eye. No one's going to look at this place the same way again. Sometimes the unknown is the best deterrent. Could be behind every rancher, every farmer. There's something far more dangerous than anyone expects. The wildflowers along the road, trembling in the breeze. The plains stretching wide and unbroken. Their roots deep in the Texas soil. In the weeks that followed, Redstone began to change. John's team buying the abandoned cartel properties at auction. Raven taking the old Carter place, offering a perfect overwatch point above the area. Doc restoring an abandoned clinic so the community could have medical care. Spectre installing advanced comm systems across Redstone under the guise of expanding an amateur radio network. Demo upgrading ranch equipment. making it more durable and efficient while discreetly adding safety features. But the biggest change, not in infrastructure, but the people. John starting to train the locals, not turning them into soldiers, but helping them become more aware, organized, and protective of their way of life. Ranchers and farmers learning to spot suspicious strangers, coordinate with each other, warn the community of potential threats. The lake glowing silver in the distance. It's come a testament to the peace John had won. Frank Hensley regained consciousness 3 weeks after the attack. His recovery slow, but steady, especially under Doc's care. Returning home to find his ranch already rebuilt through the collective efforts of Redstone's residents. Young Ethan, now trained by John in the basics of surveillance and security, becoming one of the most valuable members of Redstone's new defense system. His eyes and ears catching details others might miss. Word spreading fast in criminal circles about Redstone being untouchable, no one daring to test its defenses anymore. Rumors swirling of unnatural events. Mysterious incidents befalling those too interested in the area, becoming known as Ghost Valley, a place where even the most dangerous criminals seem to vanish without a trace. One day, the county sheriff asking John if this was really over, John just smiling, looking out at the quiet fields, the cattle grazing. On the surface, Redstone a peaceful farming corner in Texas. But beneath that calm, an invisible network of protection. Not a military base, not a walled fortress, but a community that had learned to defend itself, the wildflowers along the fields blooming anew, their colors vibrant in the Texas sun, the lake glowing silver in the distance. It's come a testament to the peace John had won. The crew gathered on the porch, coffee steaming in mugs. The air thick with the scent of roasted beans and the faint tang of gunpowder that clung to their clothes. Ethan slouched in a chair, his face steady, trust forged in the fight's fire. The map spread wide across the table, the northern perimeter marked in red ink, a testament to the night's victory, the lantern light casting long shadows over their weary faces. The lake glowing gold outside as the last rays of dusk faded, the plains stretching wide and unbroken, wildflowers battered but enduring, their roots deep in the Texas soil. "Cartel down," Frank said, leaning back, his pistol gleaming on his hip, his voice gravelly but sure. "But Grayson's still breathing, he's a shadow we can't shake." Mary Ellen poured coffee, her hand firm, her voice edged with steel. "Land held. Your fight's a wall, John. We'll stand." Jake grinned, his fists unclenching, dust still smudged on his face. "We broke him. Ethan, too. He's steel now." Sarah nodded from the corner, her phone glowing with Hargrove's last update, her voice resolute. "Sheriff's hunting. Cartel trails cold. We'll find a route." Matt tapped his laptop, fingers pausing as he met John's gaze, his tone sharp. They were tied to Grayson's cache, deep ties. "I'll trace it. Won't stop till we know." Tom stood by the door, lantern dimming, his broad frame a silent pillar, his voice low but firm. "I'll watch the ridge. Plains are clear, but eyes ain't." John met Ethan's gaze across the table. The boy's eyes steady despite the weight of the night, his hands still steady from the fight, and John's voice cut through the room like steel tempered in fire. "You held today. Fought like a Parker. That's good. Keep it up, Ethan. The battle's just the start. We've got more coming." Ethan swallowed hard, nodding slow, his voice quiet but raw. "I will, Dad, swear it. No more running." The room fell silent, the lake glowing silver outside as the night deepened, the plains stretching wide and unbroken, wildflowers battered but enduring, their roots deep in the Texas soil. John rose, rifle close, stepping onto the porch where the air smelled of earth and renewal, his eyes scanning the ridge where the fight had raged. The memory of the cartel's defeat a bitter taste on his tongue, the legacy of his past await he'd carry until the end. Across the horizon, a light blinking, binoculars catching the starlight, then vanishing into the trees, a shadow still breathing in the darkness, a reminder that the fight was far from over, the wildflowers along the plains' edge blooming anew, their colors vibrant in the Texas night, the lake glowing silver in the distance. Its calm a testament to the peace John had won, but the storm on the horizon a promise of battles yet to come.